The boat swayed quietly. The nets were cast. The waning darkness of early morning was giving way to a promising sunrise cresting on the horizon. Hours before, Peter and some of his closest friends had picked up the old nets collecting dust, undocked the boat that had been tied up for months, and gone fishing. But it was different this time. Restlessness loomed in the air. An unspoken mourning lingered. After hours of persistent casting and recasting of the nets, they'd caught nothing. Then suddenly, something strangely familiar happened. A faintly recognizable voice called from the shore, "Children, do you have any fish?" Don't you love it when Jesus asks questions he already knows the answers to? "No," they answered. "Cast the net on the right side of the boat and you will find some." The disciples, in blind obedience, cast their nets to the right side of the boat. Without pause, for the second time in their lives, the nets quickly plummeted beneath the surface, laden to overflowing with fish. Premium omega-3s, I have no doubt. Another miracle for John's journal, another signpost pointing to the true nature of the man guiding them from the shoreline. He was indeed God. What I love most about this story in John 21 is how closely it mirrors Peter's origin story of faith in Luke 5. The first encounter Peter ever had with Jesus was almost verbatim the same scenario. A group of guys, a little rough around the edges, out all night fishing. Empty nets. Accepting defeat, they began the unrewarding trek to the shore. All the while, a miracle was brewing. A man shows up on the scene and gives a little guidance. Recast the nets. Having no other option but to quit, they chose both times to follow his instructions out of blind obedience. Shock and awe gripped the fishermen as the miracle of multiplied fish unfolded before their eyes. Both times, their nets almost broke under the weight of fish. Both times, Peter is moved towards transformation. Both times, we hear a resounding invitation, "Follow me." Reading the part 2 of this story in the final chapter of the Gospel of John makes me smile and get a little teary-eyed. It's as if Jesus was quietly conspiring. "Peter, I'm going to take you back to where this story all began. The same place where I first found you is where I will find you again." You see, this second time around, Peter was at a perplexing crossroads and questioning everything in his life leading up to that moment. Fishing nets probably felt a little safer. Resorting to something he knew he could do, abandoning the dream of what he once believed he could do. And we can hardly blame him, because going back to fishing is probably exactly what we'd do too. Only weeks before, Peter had gotten a whopping grade F on the greatest test of his life. 3 times he denied any association with the man who had completely changed him. The man he'd laid down everything to follow. The man he'd slept in tents with, missed weeks away from his family for, and given up his livelihood to chase after. For Peter, it wasn't just sacrifice and dedication to a great cause. He'd seen things he couldn't explain away. Miracles, signs, wonders. Jesus wasn't just an anointed rabbi Peter followed on Instagram or TikTok. Everything Peter had experienced pointed towards the same inarguable conclusion. Jesus was the long-awaited Messiah that Israel had ached for centuries to behold. Peter believed this with conviction. And furthermore, Peter had a part to play. He was evidently going to be Jesus' right-hand man for a legendary kingdom comeback. Or so he thought. Now, that aspirational version of himself felt over. The facts were undeniable. He was a coward, a fake, a liar, a disloyal friend, and an unqualified leader. The deepest fears hiding in the crevices of his heart, the ones he'd convinced himself weren't there anymore, were now the nightmare he was living. He was no rock, after all. He was a sham. Peter now doubted where he fit in the construct of the gospel. He'd seen Jesus reappear from the dead. How could anyone argue his divine nature after that? Was Jesus now going to take back Israel from Roman control and establish his kingdom on earth? Were the ancient prophecies actually going to be fulfilled in Peter's lifetime? Were the dreams he'd bought into hook, line, and sinker going to take place in the near future? A small surge of hope welled up inside of Peter at the possibility, but sorrowfully evaporated away with one looming thought, the tormenting question plaguing him for what felt like centuries now, reverberated again. Will I still get to play a part? In the wake of failure, the promises over his life now felt distant, unattainable. God would probably never use him in that way now. Despondent, Peter did what people do when the pain of failure is too much to handle. He escaped, isolated, and went back to what he knew. Anyone can fish. Yet, as the boat lurched forward into the murky water, God was already one step ahead. A restoration plan was simmering on the shore, or rather, in a sandy fire pit. Hours later, when his beloved Jesus showed up on the scene and he witnessed the second miracle of multiplied fish, Peter abandoned all rationality and plunged headlong into the water, frantically swimming for the shore. And we could expect no less from him, notorious for being a bit impetuous. After all, waiting for the boat to paddle to shore was going to take too long. What if Jesus disappeared before he got there? This was FOMO on overdrive. Desperation makes us do things that complacency doesn't. Jesus met a dripping Peter with one of the greatest strategies known to mankind: food, comfort, breakfast around a campfire. This one always gets me. God is profoundly relational. The disciples soon all gathered around and they savored a heavenly bread and fish breakfast, also known as the Jesus special. Read the Gospels. Then the moment Jesus always intended to arrive at from the very beginning, before Peter's greatest failure, before the cross, before the resurrection, finally came. Simon, son of John, do you love me? A hush fell around the campfire. It's clear that Jesus wasn't looking for information he didn't already have. He knew Peter loved him. But Peter had lost the thread back to that truth somewhere in the courtyard on that fateful Friday night. So Jesus asked, not as an interrogation, but as an invitation to help Peter see clearly again. I know you love me. But do you know that you love me, Peter? Peter slowly replied, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Then feed my sheep, responds Jesus. 3 denials, 3 restorations. The symmetry is breathtaking. God was not going to allow Peter's failure to permanently bench him from the game. Jesus knew the true state of Peter's heart. No amount of frailty or fickleness could eradicate the truth. He really did love God. On that beach, in one unhurried breakfast, Jesus restored Peter's identity and his calling simultaneously. A son filled with God's love, called and chosen for a purpose. The enemy wanted to set Peter down permanently, to see him sidelined for good. Satan's verdict was loud and clear: disqualified. Jesus' verdict was louder: still in the game. When Jesus first found Peter and he came face to face with holiness, Peter fell to his knees and said, "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." Now, those same condemning words were likely on the tip of Peter's tongue once again. Yet, Jesus' invitation was seamless from that very first encounter unto this pivotal gospel moment. Follow me. I find it profoundly beautiful that God would lay the foundation of his church this way. If grace, mercy, and forgiveness weren't first extended to Peter, our church founder, how could the rest of us find hope? God never meant for Peter to lead the charge with unhinged zeal and good intentions alone, but to lead with the unbending conviction that while he, Peter, was still a sinner, Christ had died for him. Peter would never forget this formative moment. It would inform how he lived the rest of his life. Now, Peter knew he could never be Messiah. Only Jesus could. This was the kind of leader Jesus had been intentionally and patiently fashioning all along. Those weeks of wrestling and the unresolved would ultimately prepare Peter for the day the breakthrough finally came. God would press play again on that supposedly forfeited promise over Peter's life. The rock who would build his church, the fisher of men who would haul in nets and nets of Jesus followers. That promise was only on a brief pause. The process of God was always on play. Upon getting restored, that same weak man would stand up in boldness on the day of Pentecost, unapologetically ready to tell the world about Jesus. Even though he wouldn't get to see Israel restored in his lifetime, he would be given the magnificent calling of building God's church from the ground up and making the name of Jesus famous throughout the earth. Peter went from dripping wet in desperate longing on that sandy beach to dripping with the fragrance of grace, mercy, and unconditional love, forever baptized in the power of redemption and forgiveness. Friend, if you've ever felt like Peter, disqualified by failure, drowning in the regret of hasty and reckless decisions, disillusioned, wondering where you fit in the gospel story, resorting to what feels comfortable and safe to avoid the pain of what no longer feels attainable, disappointed in yourself, withdrawing in shame. I have good news for you. The outcome of Peter's story can be your story too. As you toss about in the waves, Jesus is calling from the shoreline, not to interrogate you, but to invite you. He's got a restoration plan to blot out every one of your sins. A campfire is waiting for you. Breakfast is hot. Jesus alone promises the freedom from guilt, the friendship in love, and the dignified purpose you achingly long to feel. And his words still resound louder than ever, echoing into eternity itself. Come, follow me.